Welcome to Music Loop Podcast, brought to you by ASME SA Chapter. This is your very excited, happy, friendly podcast host, Chris Narraway. Music Loop is a podcast for people who want to reach out, connect and be inspired. Music Loop is designed to create a connection point for educators to support their involvement with music education. Whether you are a classroom practitioner or music specialist, this is an opportunity to reach out, offer support to others, ask questions and take action. Get involved in music education. Welcome to episode 1 of Music Loop, titled Right Place, Right Time or Strategic Personal Development. During this series of podcasts, our team will be looking at the many brilliant music practitioners around the state and asking them to share their story. Our focus will be on educators who clearly demonstrate the goals of our podcast, to reach out, connect and be inspired. My guest today stood out as someone who has an amazing story. Throughout her career, she's taken a risk and reinvented herself many times over. She's an inspiring example of someone who has used career challenges to drive her growth and learning. Some of her roles in education included her beginnings as a reception teacher, as her leadership role at St John's Grammar at Belair, and her fabulous years as Director of Music and choir conductor with the Public Schools Music Festival. My guest today is Deb Hepworth, whose current role has taken her into uncharted waters for South Australia. Deb will be reflecting and sharing her story with us, including her metamorphosis from reception teacher to music guru. She'll be outlining some of the motivators and challenges that have been part of her career shifts and the philosophies, tips and strategies that have made her a successful leader and role model. If you're concerned about making change in your life, this conversation may inspire you to step up to something new. I want to introduce Deb Hepworth. Deb and I have interacted both socially and professionally for over 25 years. That's a long time. We have some wonderful mutual friends and I have had the pleasure of dinner and a few wines with Deb over the years. My professional interaction has included the Public Schools Music Festival during her years as choral director and director of music, and more recently as choir teacher and assessor. Our current connection, and I'm definitely stalking her, and probably where I have learned a lot more about her amazing personal and professional pathway, has been when I joined the team of the National Music Teachers Mentoring Program. Welcome, Deb.
Hi, Chris.
I just wanted to actually have a bit of a chat about our weekend because we've been working together for a really, really long time and we do have some common friends. So I wanted you to tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us some of your background. Tell us some of the things that you've done in the past.
I suppose if we're talking about music around that question, I started with a pretty good background because Mum and my grandma were both musical. I started piano really early on in my primary school years and I was in my church choir for absolutely ever, from about year 5 to year 12, I think.
Yeah, I did the choir thing too.
Yeah, I think a lot of our primary school's music festival teachers have got a background not dissimilar to that. I went to Teachers College even though I wanted to be an archaeologist, which is quite interesting. So I wasn't sure I was quite mature enough to venture off to Melbourne, which is what I would have had to have done to be an archaeologist back in the day. And I chose primary school teaching. I didn't
do the safe course. So.
Yeah, probably. I didn't do music at college though.
Is there no music there at all?
Yeah, there was, but I wanted to do something that was different, so I did maths and history and ended up doing reception and primary school teaching and ended up in music by kind of accident.
Okay, and so that sort of, you didn't really decide to become a teacher, it sort of became a teacher by default, would you say?
In a sense, yes, I think that's probably true.
Well, how did you make that link from reception teacher to getting on the music trail, or how did you start that work?
I was at Annesley College at the time, and
so where were you a reception teacher at Annesley?
Yes, reception. And in those days, I don't think there was NIT. And if there was, you might have got one lesson a week. And there were 3 of us in the junior primary unit and we decided that we needed some time for administration. And so we bunched together as a unit and divided some of the subjects up between us where we would take all the classes together and have another teacher help supervise, and another teacher could go off and do whatever they needed to. I wanted to teach SOS, or social studies as it was then, and someone else took it. And what else can I teach? And I knew a bit about music because of the things I'd talked about a moment ago. And then I thought, well, yes, I can sing, and yes, I can kind of read music, but can I teach it? So I just went and sat in a bookstore one Saturday afternoon and hunted through every teaching guide for music in primary schools, and a lot of it didn't really make a lot of sense to me, and I found the Kodai books, Deanna Herman's early Kodai books, and I thought, wow. I get this. So
they did have all of those packages, like with the books and the kids' books and the
had kids' books,
the
teachers'
developmental
books.
music program.
That's it.
Yep.
That's it. And I thought, well, if I get it, then I think that I can get the kids to get it. And so that's basically how it started.
Just so you've kind of found yourself a good resource, and
absolutely,
took it back to your
and
brain
one that made
and
sense. One that made sense to me.
So you worked with each of the classrooms individually?
No, we all came together because we were starting from scratch. So there was no difference.
Like 60 kids or something in the room teaching music?
It might not have been 60. We might have been lucky and had small classes in those days as well. But it worked really, really well. Once we started doing that, because the kids, their singing ability grew exponentially by doing that, that we ended up doing a bit of a production at the end of the year, and my principal saw it along with the parents and came to me and said, Deb, would you take choir? And then no, because there was already a choir teacher, and she asked me over maybe the next couple of years until the existing teacher and I came to an agreement. So I started taking choir. She played the piano and I started standing at the front, not really knowing what I was doing once again, but loving every minute of it. I had fantastic teachers along the way, mentors along the way.
Okay, so with your choral developing your choral skills, so the woman who accompanied you,
Mary LePage.
Oh, that was Mary LePage.
Yeah,
wow.
very lucky.
Wow.
She was amazing. And I observed David Jackson in his classroom as well.
So you were still working in private sector,
yes,
but
I was.
You were sort of branching into...
anyone who could give me an idea about how to be better at what I was doing, I kind of went and chatted or listened or watched or whatever it was that I...
So you did some PD?
Yeah, Mary LePage was quite... it was actually David Jackson that started it. He came to do a bit of a masterclass with my choirs because I don't know if I'm doing the right thing.
So are they letting public school teachers into their private schools?
Yeah, they weren't so fussy.
No, good.
And I don't know if actually anyone knew except me.
Well,
anyway,
anybody does along. Now. Yeah, right, okay.
Exactly. And he said, they sing fantastically, Debbie. You should put a choir in the Eisteddfods. And I'm going, the what? And he goes, they're competitions. Oh, okay. All right, how do you do that? And he gave me some advice, and I went and observed another choir who had done really well in the choral competitions, and we put them in and we won. Which was quite amazing.
Your first year, you won your Eisteddfod. Okay.
Yeah. And then Mary LePage said to me, you're fantastic with the kids. You should really go and find out what on earth it is that you're doing. Oh, thank you, Mary. But she gave me lots of pointers, and I applied for a Hungarian government scholarship and won that and ended up in the List Academy.
So we're looking at
Hungary.
10 years or something from where to go?
Probably about 83, 4, 5. I might have been just doing my stuff by myself without getting much input.
You don't have to say years if you don't want to.
No, that's fine. Everyone knows that I'm old. And then I started to get support, maybe 85, 86, 86, 87, and went off in 1989.
Wow.
And did 6 months at the List Academy.
Wow.
Yeah, which was basically you could take the subject. It was in the international school, so it wasn't in Hungarian. And I could take the subjects that I wanted. So I did methodology and solfege and piano and voice and conducting and conducting and conducting.
So you've gone from a space where you started teaching reception kids at a classroom with something that you'd picked up from a book that you found in a bookshop randomly, and then ended up within a very short period of time, 15, 16 years, at an academy in Hungary. Wow, that's amazing. Sensational.
So it was, I think that was probably about a 5-year process actually. 6, 7, maybe 7-year process from the beginning of me going, I'm going to teach music, to going to Hungary. Yeah,
so I guess you've
pretty
had
lucky.
You were lucky, but you've taken those opportunities. You took that space. Somebody said, have a go at this, or someone said, have a go at that, and you, whatever, whether it was enough confidence or drive or energy or whatever it is in your personality, you took that opportunity and went forward with it. I think that's...
Well, I think I found that I loved it.
Yeah.
And then with the support of those people who are mentors for me, encouraged me. And if it's your passion and you love it, why wouldn't you go for it? And I think also I'm easily bored. Right? It's good for me to do things, to keep moving towards something. Towards something different.
All right, so there's some strategies in place already that have started your growth and development, those that taking advantage of things and finding the best advice you can. It sounds like you've gone to places where you can get the best possible information available to you. And, obviously Mary LePage has been a support, but you talked about David Jackson, so lots of different mentors and people around you that have moved you forward.
Has informed, where I am now. So the idea of mentoring, paying back, so it's quite interesting, that connection.
Now you're in charge of mentors in a sense. So you went from Hungary, you came back to
Annesley.
Annesley,
yeah. And then saw a job in Melbourne that I thought had been written for me, which it wasn't obviously, but it looked like something I could do. And so I moved there for a couple of years. It wasn't a fabulous experience in terms of I didn't like it very much really, but I learned a lot. And I think that's the other thing, where whatever you do, even if it's not, that it doesn't end up to be what you imagine it might have been. Wherever you go, you learn something that can inform what you do or the decisions that you make the next time round. So I only stayed there for a couple of years, and that was full-time music teaching in middle school.
Wow, that would have been a learning curve from what you have been doing. That's amazing. Yeah, as you say, that would have been a lot of learning in that space. Just older kids or kids in a different headset, different place.
A lot of differences. And I think the greatest thing there was for me to learn, yes, you do need to step outside what you normally do, but I think you have to be careful about what decisions you make around that as well. I think I might have been seduced by the fact that it looked fantastic on paper and it was a really amazing school in terms of its reputation.
Okay.
Anyway, I came back and...
Look good on the CV then?
Yeah, I'm
Excellent.
sure.
Okay. So you came back to Adelaide then after that experience and...
St John's Grammar School.
St John's Grammar.
Yeah, that was also another fabulous school to work at. Great
you were there
start.
for quite a few years.
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah, that's about my limit. 10 or 11, I get a bit twitchy after that. So 10 years at
tell us a little bit about St John's, and you did mention, I think, when we were having a chat earlier about the support you got from the leadership at that site. Was it Dot? Was that her name?
Dorothy. Yeah, fabulous support for the music program. And
can you describe how things started at St John's? So
yes, I went there as part-time Year 4 teacher and some music classes, and then the percentage of the music classes grew until I was all music, and then eventually performing arts coordinator. And Dorothy was really behind that. But because of the things I'd done before, we were successful. And I think then Dorothy realised that the success of the program was fabulous for the public relations of the school. She could use it to sell the school. And we got on quite well. So they were both really, really useful things.
And so that kind of partnership that you formed with her, in a sense, that, and the conversations you had around, the ideas that you had, which built on her understanding of what she'd like for the site, that getting together, that blending of goals and ideals is really what drove it forward.
I think she had the goals for it to be as successful as possible, and after she'd seen the successes, she was happy to trust that the things that I suggested were going to achieve the things that she wanted.
So was it kind of a woe to go thing? Was there nothing there when you got there, really?
I think they'd had a music teacher previously, and then decided to use a classroom music program that each teacher was meant to implement, and that hadn't worked. And so I had sent her an expression of interest in her school when I was still in Melbourne, when I knew that I was coming home, and said if there was ever a position, in particular next year, I'd love to be considered. And she rang me up and had an interview. And
so what kinds of things drove that school forward? I mean, obviously the relationship you had with leadership and the openness and support.
Parents were fantastic, really, really supportive. We had a parent-friends group, Friends of Music, who would support the camps that we had. We went on music tour.
Wow.
We went on many excursions. We had a lot of visitors to the schools. The ASO came, the Australian String Quartet came.
So bringing in ensembles and things into the site and raising the profile by getting out and offering opportunities for performance.
Come Out, as it was. We participated in what was the Independent Schools Music Festival every year. We did a musical. We had a carol night in the St. Peter's Cathedral.
You did a massive concert at the town hall.
Yes,
to one of those.
We did. And the town hall was fabulous, a little expensive, but that was for a particular occasion. So the rest of our music night, whole school music nights, were in Elder Hall. So there's a huge range of opportunities for the kids to perform. We had class music nights. We had Grandparents' Day. So every opportunity at that school was taken.
So it follows on from that ethos that you have, in a way, that you had a personal ethos of taking on board different opportunities, but you were giving that, you were sort of paying it forward in a sense to the kids or students that you were working with. Here's an opportunity, take it. It's the way to move forward.
And I think kids really appreciate that too. They don't like to learn for what they see as no apparent reason, but if they know they're working towards a goal. And we were lucky, we had every class had 2 music lessons a week, one which is classroom music and one choral period. Yeah. I had fantastic staff, a great accompanist who is our mutual friend, and we also had a great instrumental music staff, and we ended up with a Year 3 string program, and before I left we'd planned to have a Year 5 wind and brass program, which I think they do have.
They do, yeah. Brilliant. And so from St John's, you went off to
Australian Girls Choir.
Back to Victoria?
Yes, yes. I was national music coordinator for a couple of years, and that was a real challenge, and I stuck my hand up because I wanted to do it. I learned...
Or you'd come to your 10 years at the end of St John's, really?
Yes, absolutely. And once again, learnt heaps about copyright and arrangements and concerts, but found myself thinking that I was too much of an office girl. So maybe it wasn't the right job, but came away with a lot of things, and came back to South Australia and still did the same job, but I was working back here. And because I did so much work, I got Fridays off because I did so much weekend work with the
okay. So they sort of shifted your days
so
off.
I said, yes, so Fridays off. And I'd always wanted the job of the Director of Music of the Primary Schools Music Festival from when I had first watched David Jackson way back in the 80s. That would be a job that I would really like. So when I had Fridays off, I rang up the festival and said, I know the year's already set, but if anyone needs a teacher on a Friday, I'm free. And this is to a bunch of people I didn't really know. But the manager, Suzanne, said, yes, we'll put you on the books. And a few weeks later... the teacher at Clapham Primary School got a promotion to Brighton High, and they needed someone on a Friday. So I went and taught at Clapham Primary School for the festival, and then the then Director of Music retired, and you had to work for the department to apply for her position, but HPI, hourly paid instructor, counted, and so I applied and won the job.
Wow. And so... right place, right time, and strategic planning all in one hit.
Yes,
yep.
Yeah. I think that's, for me, that's been a key, is that there has been a high degree of opportunities that have come that I haven't necessarily made. Some I have made, and some I just took when they were there. And some have led to fantastic collaboration, long-standing and collaborations. Others shorter, but all of it's been really useful.
That was certainly you. How long were you what do you call the director of music? Yeah, I get that right.
11 and a half years, I think.
Wow. And I know from personal experience that you made quite a lot of changes, not changes necessarily in the feel or the goals, the overall goals, but just how things moved in public schools. So were there some challenges there for you that you wanted to identify? You might not want to identify them.
I think really the greatest challenge was in that first year, coming from a system, outside the system, only having been a choir teacher for a month or 2 months or something, coming in, and the role is you imparting a lot of information to people who had already been in the organisation for a very long time, because they have that longevity in the workforce that they have. And I felt really uncomfortable about telling people who
Already knew their job
how to suck eggs. That was very, very scary.
It's good that you're sensitive to those kinds of things, because that is often an obstacle new people have coming in, particularly new leadership or a new space. Yeah.
Scary. But after the first conference, which is in the beginning of the year that I started, 2005, I think it might have been, it kind of just grew, basically. I think the biggest input perhaps I had was into the repertoire, which is something I love, choosing the songs that the kids learn and then putting them together, or from a variety of songs that we would like to use, making a program that really works. And that included commissioning South Australian and Australian composers to write for us. I didn't start that had already been established, but those protocols were already there. But I loved working in that particular space and watching teachers really develop. That was the other thing that I really found very satisfying.
It's certainly, during that period of time, your influence was really felt, I believe, and that kind of the repertoire, as you say, was one thing, and certainly that storytelling element that's come through with the commissioned works. That sort of, I guess, it's thematic material, but
a little bit, yes.
Using that storytelling element has become a really strong part of what the public schools does now, and I think it's amazing. It's the best part of your role. But I see you've gone to this space and then you get to the end. Was that 10 years? Yes. Was that the 10 years? And you got to your 10-year thing and you decided what?
Basically I thought after 10 years, I need to find something else to do. And I actually ended up staying for an extra year and a half or whatever, at the request of the then manager for various reasons, and that was fine as well. And 2015 was the last concert series that I conducted, and that was the Anzac one. And so I kind of finished in a fabulous place, and I was really happy to be leaving kind of still on a high. Apart from me being easily bored, I never really wanted to leave anything after people started to think I should have already left. So that was really important to me. And then I thought because it's a very high-pressure job and you're kind of at the pointy end of that organisation and a lot of responsibility, I thought I needed to retire. So I did. I stayed around a bit in the festival as a mentor to the team that took over, and then I wanted to go back. Not necessarily to the festival, but I needed to be purposeful again. I'd had my little break and I didn't obviously want to retire. I just needed a really big break.
Or a new job, which is what you did.
Or a new job. And in the year that I was supporting the team in the transition, we all ended up going to some professional development that the Adelaide Symphony Orchestra had organised, and the presenter was the very revered and absolutely loved Richard Gill. And we all went along as a team. And at the end of his presentation, was absolutely inspiring, I think, to everybody who has ever seen him. He started to talk about the National Music Teacher Mentoring Program and how he would like it to start in South Australia. And they tried once before and it hadn't really gone anywhere. And this group of 5 or 6 or 7 people from the festival all looked at each other and went, "We'll be your organisation, your overarching organisation, and we'll pitch it to the department and help," which they did with Richard's great inspirational support.
He's an amazing speaker, isn't he? Very convincing
fabulous.
person.
Yes, and articulate and clever and witty and but so personable as well. And I was already doing a bit of mentoring work with new choir teachers for the festival, and the then managers.
Do you still do that, Rob?
Yes, I still do. Yeah, I said, well, that would make perfect sense if we are going to do it, Deb. If you did that on behalf of the festival, because you're already doing mentoring. And I'm going, oh, yes, thank you very much. And so that's how...
A new passion was born.
Yes, absolutely. I remember going to some professional development very early on in my music career that Richard was the main presenter at, and I think I spent most of the time looking in my handbag.
What?
Because I didn't want him to ask me to do anything.
Oh, okay.
Because I was really scared.
So that's that no eye contact.
Yeah, no eye contact.
Don't look at me. Don't ask me.
Don't
I'm
look
not
at me.
looking.
I'm looking in my handbag. I don't think I was the only one, mind you. But yeah, very inspirational.
I do remember going to the mentoring things when we went down in Hobart. And in the first year of mentoring, I was very lucky to have that opportunity to work in the mentoring and we went down to, what's that called?
Mona.
I'm going to call FOMO. Down to Mona. It was absolutely amazing. And Richard Gill was really the very first time I'd had him up close. And so I know exactly what you're talking about. If you sat in the front row, you were under fire. But so it's like, everybody kind of worked out. If you weren't that interested in singing solo in front of your peers, you moved to the back rows really quickly. So I know exactly what you're talking about with him.
He was. I started to reread his autobiography called "Give Me Excess of It," which is a fabulous read. If anyone is interested in hearing his thoughts and listening to his journey, but really inspiring man. A great loss to music education. His passing.
Absolutely. And I know the mentoring program has been going, it's been running now for 3 years. This is fourth year? Fourth year.
In South Australia and a couple more years interstate, started in the eastern states. Yeah.
And so how many, can you sort of identify with data? We have data in place. Do you have any numbers about how many teachers this has touched so far? Sorry, that was a bad question. I should have asked that one before.
So,
lots.
Well, in the first year we went to 10 schools and I think it's increased. So there are 2 teachers in every school that are music specialist mentors. We release the music specialist from their school and they are assigned a couple of other schools and they go and work in a classroom with 2. Work with 2 teachers. So you go into the classroom for a lesson. As a mentor, you model over a 15-week period, and during that time your modelling becomes slightly less as the teacher picks up what you're doing and then they can co-teach with you and eventually you help them plan lessons of their own. So you leave them in a place after the 15, probably 18 by the time you put planning sessions in there, 18 lessons, more or less once a week.
That's a very good, I know from experience just how much the actual teachers that you work with, the participating teachers, so how much they get out of that. It's amazing.
10, 13, 17 schools in the first 3 years, I'm guessing. No, not guessing, that's fairly accurate. And this year it looks like we will be in 6 schools who are taking a second or third year program because the teachers love it so much they want to keep going because they feel they're not quite ready.
Yeah, it helps the sustainability of the program. Yes,
absolutely, and that's what we're on about. We don't want to lob something on someone and then disappear and find out that a couple of years later it hasn't really made any difference. So sustainability is really important. And I think we've got applications for 8 new schools for this year. Wow,
that's great.
And so it's fabulous.
So if teachers were interested in becoming a mentor, that's something they could contact you and see if any sites were interested in having the mentoring program, then
yes, absolutely.
Maybe for 2021.
2021, absolutely, and mentors for 2021 as well. We were really lucky in our first year, and we've tried to maintain this, that we want the best music specialists as part of the program because we want the program to be successful, so that those teachers who we are mentoring then can go on and use those skills for the rest of their teaching career. So we're not just influencing the children that we have in those classes. We hope our influence will,
carry forward.
Carry forward for it, for as long as those
hopefully
teachers
a generational thing going forward with those students coming
And
through.
ideally, if the universities were to take on providing better music education for their students, we'd do ourselves out of a job.
Oh, you're going to get all the politics in here today.
But that's not going to happen soon.
No.
So this is is one process that can be used to help existing teachers upskill and
feel more confident
and put more music education into their general classroom
and have a go, taking advantage of the opportunities that have been put in front of them.
Absolutely.
I just want to ask you questions. Let's see if we can make this. What resources have you encountered in the last 12 months that have supported you either professionally or personally and helped you grow in some way? You did mention the Richard Gill book, which I sort of thought I might make a note of that one.
Well, that book, because it's his life and he is inspirational, his writing is inspirational as well. It's funny, so it's a really good read. Resources for...
Could be people. I mean, you have an extensive network, just the different places you've worked in Australia and South Australia. So
I've actually found some of the people I've learned the most from in the last little while are the mentors themselves, because the people we've chosen, and I was lucky because I know about them because of my history with the festival, I've learned probably the most from what the mentors have told me about what they do, or visiting the mentors and seeing them operate in their classrooms. And a lot of them make their own resources. So those sorts of things, online resources of all the songs that they use, so that there's a score and a sound file. So I think it's kind of my peers at this point in time.
I have to say, being one of those mentors, learning from the other mentors was absolutely amazing. I'm still learning from them. They're amazing.
Yeah, so I think that would be the greatest thing in terms of music education in 2019.
So I'm just going to ask this question as well. What statement, motto or saying would you have displayed in your classroom? Do you have kind of a Deb Hepworth theme that you would want to blazoned on your banner?
We chatted about this earlier and made me try and reflect on everything that I'd done, not just recently. And this one's always stuck in my mind, and I've never really thought of it as kind of a Deb mantra or anything. But it goes, anything you don't know is something you can learn. And I really like that for me, and I think that's really good for kids.
A personal philosophy. I think it's a good personal philosophy, anybody really. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But it's kind of personifies what I've done and where I've gone, and if I didn't know it, I learned it. Learning process might be a bit slower these days. But
hey, come on, neuroplasticity, it's all still working, they tell me. All right, so we're getting close to finishing off. Perhaps if you wouldn't mind, is there one big idea that you'd want the listener to take away? Is that from this? So just one big idea. I mean, it can be more, but we'll start with one.
I think take the step. Take the step. Acknowledge maybe that there might be fear, apprehension, but it's worth taking. Even if it doesn't do exactly what you thought it would, you will still learn from that, and maybe it will enable you to take the next one. And if it does work, all of that's just going to set things on a roll where you just can keep moving forward. And I think the idea that it is our professional responsibility to stay professionally alert and to keep professional development really high on our list of priorities, because if you're going to do the best that you can, then especially by your students and for yourself, that's really important. And resting on your laurels is not going to get you very far at all.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you, Deb. I have to say I've learned a lot more about you in the last couple of weeks than I ever thought I would. So thank you very, very, very much for joining us today. Our very first...
The guinea pig.
Our guinea pig, our very first
My absolute pleasure.
Guest
I hope it's been
on
useful.
Music Loop Podcast. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Music Loop has been brought to you by the Australian Society for Music Education, SA Chapter, and through the support of the Music Education Strategy Innovation Funding. You can subscribe to Music Loop asmesa.libsyn.com, asmesa.libsyn.com. If you have any feedback or would like further information about this episode, you can connect with Music Loop via email musicloop@asme.edu.au or join the discussion on ASME SA Facebook page. Show notes about how to connect and information about the episode are at asme.edu.au/SA. I'm Chris Narraway and this has been Music Loop. Reach out, connect, be inspired.